Is Grant from State of the Spark, and I could not be more excited to be here with you today. I have a lot of good material to bring you today. We're going to be quick. We only got about 20 minutes, 15 minutes before you got to probably get to work. But we got a great lesson on how this one behavior of yours, I hate to break it to you, is actually breaking global progress. Yes, you and me and everyone around us has this one trait that if we just turned it around, we could turn from breaking global progress to rapidly accelerating global progress. We're going to talk about, do bees have a ball? And the answer is yes, they do. New research shows that bees actually have a mother stinking ball. Here, let's close this. Monicanta, I hope I'm saying your name right. Good morning. How are you doing this morning? Thanks for dropping by. In other news, we're also going to be talking about Dr. Google Doolittle. Who is Dr. Doolittle and how is he, or Google, helping us talk to animals? But before all of that, we're going to start with Morning Cup of Gratitude. We like to start our week off right. And Monicanta, thanks for stopping by. I hope you're doing fantastic. We like to start the week off with gratitude, because gratitude actually gets you in the right frame of mind for your business, for your ventures, if you're going to school, if you're working as an employee, starting right. Someone says, "What up, stud?" Facebook user. Who is that? If they know me well enough to call me stud, it's probably a friend. I'm willing to bet it's probably Sam or somebody like that. But we're going to be covering Morning Cup of Gratitude. So share in the comments. If you're here, there's 3 of you. There's 5 of you. 8 of you. 3 of you. 4 of you. If you're in the comments, tell me what you're grateful for today. And I'm going to start. And listen, if you want to jump in, we're going to be doing office hours. Oh, there's Thomas Chernick. Facebook user is Thomas Chernick. That guy's a stud. This guy builds serious business. You guys got to check out what Thomas and his team are doing, helping people and their families and their businesses with insurance. Check it out. And investments, financial planning in general. But today we're going to be covering more gratitude. Tell me in the comments what you're grateful for, and I will start. I am so grateful that I have a self-study, personal development routine that keeps me grounded. You see, sometimes a lot of people, at least in the United States, get the Sunday blues. A lot of them have worked really hard all week. Saturday is a bit of a day of play, and Sunday is this limbo day for most people. I have a personal development routine that kind of keeps me grounded. I don't always stick to it, but when I do, this routine pulls me out of a slump, returns me to vision, and gets me going. I am grateful for that. I am grateful for my team, Amber, and everything we're doing with Spark Sites, and I'm grateful for my team with Not Crypto Bros, because these people who we run with and who are growing and making things better keep me grounded. And that's a sneak peek of what we're going to talk about, this one behavior that you have, that I have, that we all have, that actually slows down and breaks global progress and goodness in the world. But the very simple thing we can do to turn that around. Let's talk about other news real quick. News that'll make you smarter, hopefully, and share something positive, but actually quite interesting around the water cooler with people around you. Here we go. Boom. Thomas dropping it in. Breath in my lungs. Family is healthy. He's got a beautiful family. Business is thriving, and grateful for all of the individuals I get to serve and impact. Let me tell you something. There's a malaise going on in the world, and it's the great second pandemic. And I believe it's the depression, the emotional internal depression that a lot of people feel. And you pierce that veil when you have gratitude. And the easiest way to do this, especially with the mundane, someone could do what Thomas does and says, "Oh my God, it's so frustrating dealing with the people that I serve and try to impact. They're just so frustrating. They fight me at every turn. They don't pay their bills on." He could complain about all of that, and some of that would actually be true. But what's important is that he's expressing gratitude for this. That is the key to take what you see in a life that's not always exactly what you want, which is why we set goals. We set goals for that. But gratitude gives you the power to take what you see that could be negative and actually use it as the very leverage point you need to get into a proper framework, so that you A, make the most of it, and B, graduate from it and move on to the goals that you really want, that matter to you. There's too many of you wallowing in the thing you don't want and not expressing gratitude and focus and delivering the best you can deliver in order to graduate away from that thing and move on to your next best. So Thomas, thank you so much for that. Let's talk about other news. B-ball. Do bees have a ball, and why does it matter to you and this personal development small business journey you are on? I'll tell you why. In the journal called Animal Behavior, in a study done by Queen Mary University in London, they discovered that bees, yes, bees, bumblebees, go out of their way to play. Specifically, they did an experiment with rolling wooden balls, and they found that young bees typically went to wooden balls, small wooden balls, and clamber on them and roll them with no apparent incentive. No, there wasn't a sugary treat at the end. That was a different study that they actually cited, where they trained a whole different set of bees to score goals by rolling balls with a sugary incentive, sugar or sweet or pollen at the end of it. That wasn't this study. This study was an entirely different set of bees, and they found that young bees tended to gravitate towards these toys, these balls, and roll around with them. This started blowing researchers' minds. The results mirrored human behavior, they said, where the young of their species being the most playful. The young bees tended to play with the balls more than the older bees. They did another experiment to double test this. They let bees play with balls in a single chamber that was colored a certain color, and no balls in another chamber that had a different color. Then they removed the bees, then they removed the balls, and then they released the bees, kind of like going to the playground. And they found that nearly all the bees gravitated to the room that had previously had the balls, apparently looking for balls to play with. One of the authors of the study, Samadhi Galpayaji, and I'm probably saying this name wrong, so please forgive me. Samadhi Galpayaji said they may actually be experiencing what we and a cognizant species and mammals know as positive emotional states, and look for ways to create those positive states. If you want to learn more about how we're learning about the animal kingdoms and how these animal kingdoms are actually exhibiting behaviors that we are either taking for granted, overlooking, or are just too depressed with our modern living to actually access. But we have access at any time we want, just like bumblebees having a ball. Let's talk about the markets very briefly. TradFi markets, the traditional markets in the Dow Jones is down over the last 24 hours by 0.38%, but over what we looked at last week. Last week, it was at about 31,100. Today, it's about 32,700, which is interesting. The S&P 500 also up over when I reported last week. It's at 3,890, give or take, which last week it was at about 3,700. But over the last, 24 hours or so, over the last 24 hours or so, it's down a little bit. Sorry, my account's having me log in, which is weird. There we go. The NASDAQ is down 0.61%, but up over last week. It's at 11,500, when last week it was at 11,300. So all in all, over the last 7 days, the markets are up. Over the last 24 hours, the markets are break even, down just a little bit. But we're finding that this trend also is following true in the DeFi markets, which is nuts. Over the last 7 days, Bitcoin's up 7.22% at 20,799. It broke 22,000 over the weekend, which was nuts. Last week I reported it was at 19,300. Ethereum is up 20% over last week in the last 7 days. It's at about 1,600. When I reported last week, it was at 1,300. Cardano ADA over the last week up 14% at 41 cents. Last week I reported it was at 36 cents. XRP Ripple is about break even over the last 7 days at up only 1.26% at 46 cents. Last week it was at about 45 cents. And the big story of the hour is Dogecoin for whatever reason. And we're thinking that it's Elon taking over Twitter. Dogecoin's up 107% at 12 cents. Last week it was at about 6 or 5.5 cents, or 0.055 cents. And it's up 107%. Who knows what that will do? If you want to learn more about our commentary about Elon taking over Twitter and freedom of speech, we had a very lively conversation with Not Crypto Bros on Saturday morning. Go check out the Spotify episode. Check that out. And let's talk about Dr. Google Doolittle allowing us to talk to animals. Yes, Google AI, drones, and automated listening posts posted around the world, from the savannas of Africa to under the oceans with whales to on the backs of bees with miniaturization. A project has been going on for years now, years, that none of us have known about. Big data and processing power are finally at the place that humans can manage the large volume of data being gathered, listening, and watching to see how animals communicate. Now, for the longest time, if you go to Google Translate, you'll see hundreds, I think dozens, if not hundreds, of language and dialects that you could translate into. It's a powerful tool, groundbreaking. When you travel today, you don't need to learn the language, just bring Google Translate. But what we've learned is that there are patterns to every language. And for the longest time, specifically among indigenous communities, they have acknowledged that each animal species has its own language or its own chant or its own rituals, or in the bee's case, its own dance, or in the whale's case, its own song. But we know that animals do communicate somehow. They do show collective behavior, and whether it's just through instinct, whether it's through electromagnetic pulses, whether through subsonic sounds, human ears cannot detect this, and we don't even know where to start with the experiments. But AI has been brought in to find these patterns across multiple various visual wavelengths, multiple various audio wavelengths, and able to actually identify sound and start logging animal language. Karen Baker, one of the authors of the study, which turned itself into a book, said digital technology so often associated with our alienation from nature, drones, AI, causes us to be further from nature, she's saying. These digital technologies are now offering us an opportunity to listen to our non-human friends in powerful ways, reviving our connection to the natural world. What will they say when we can hear them speak? And she does raise some very important ethical issues. How will we respond when elephants on the savannah can communicate their despair, when wildebeests can communicate their despair on encroachment on their land, when bees talk about how many of their people are dying? Now, this sounds like science fiction. It sounds almost like a leftist liberal climate change propaganda, but with Google AI and big data processing can actually validate that they're communicating. And when we can reach out and communicate to them and understand what they're saying, and they can understand what we're saying, I think it will open up a world of possibility of how we can start living in balance with nature again. This is in an area known as bioacoustics, where artificial intelligence is finding patterns and databases are finally large enough to process the language. And this is going to happen in our lifetime. AI is learning fast enough and rapidly enough that we will be able to talk to these animal species simply because drones and video and audio can actually process that language, and we can put our communication into a processor in our lifetime and communicate with many species, at least in the animal kingdom, if not also in the plant kingdom. I think that's still a further way away. But with our ability to process biochemical and pharmaceuticals through AI, we should be able to also communicate with plants, which communicate to one another as a species. And we know this from the mycelium network, that through biochemical translation, through endoplasmic reticula and other means, plants also communicate. So this sounds like we're living in a science fiction world. We are. And a lot of it is science fiction until it's science fact. And I believe in our day, we will see our ability to communicate to animals, if not plants. If you want to read more about the science, not the myth, I'm going to drop the link right in here. Boom. There you go. You have that at your fingertips. You can learn more about that. Now, what this is allowing us to do is change our behavior to create more progress in the world. A lot of people will say, well, if we hear from plants and animals and we have to stop deforesting and stop killing the bees, we won't be able to do anything. I actually believe it will create a more collaborative world, which will allow us to move forward in progress that creates healthier humans, healthier world, and more rapid progress. I believe that that is true. But what behavior, what core behavior do we have right now that is breaking global progress? Some people might say greed. It's not greed. I believe it's more core to that. We're going to talk about that in today's lesson. There's been a lot of research lately about groups and group dynamics among humans. Aloneness is on the rise. Let me give you a link from the Visual Capitalist and research they had where global aloneness is on the rise. Now, the paradox with this article is as global aloneness is on the rise, what they found is there's no direct correlation to loneliness. What this might extrapolate to is people are really starting to like not being around other people. Now, this is interesting, But as I study small business and personal development, and as I study effectiveness of people, as I coach people to be more effective in their businesses and in their lives, the major communication is that this is becoming more difficult. And I believe that as people are starting to prefer to not be around other people, they prefer aloneness. I have to ask myself why. Entropy is comfortable moving away from other people. And as Dante said, hell is other people, right? But I believe that also means heaven is other people. You see, a quick story. The Spark Show, boop, 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 boop. I've attempted to expand, not a lot of people know, I've attempted to expand the Spark Show proactively over the entire last year. I've looked high and low for peers, people that wanted to hop on the show, people that wanted to talk about what they're studying, talk about what they're learning. At Spark Sites, I do a marketing nudge for the clients where I do give them a prompt on what to market for that day. And a lot of times it's personal development, and I see a dip in their ability to post that day about the personal development. As I've looked for co-hosts, I was lucky enough to find a few co-hosts for the Not Crypto Bros. They're phenomenal. But where did I have to look? One's from St. Kitts, living in Canada. The other is just outside of Boston and toggles between living in Boston and the Bronx. I had to find rare individuals who can get on a show and jam with me and talk about what we're talking about. A lot of people say it's hard to find good employees. Well, it's hard to find good peers. And as I've looked around, I found it's very difficult. In fact, I have invited no fewer than 6 individuals over the last year to actually do a show with me, to actually be co-hosts with me. I felt like we had good synergy and good energy. And all of them said yes. And none of them showed up. When I challenged them for what they were studying, what they were reading, not a single one of them could answer that question. What they were studying, how they were growing, what audiobooks were they listening to, not just what influencers were they following, but what thoughts were they having for themselves. What I have found is many of them find it difficult to be a peer of those advancing in life. Yes, if you thought it was difficult finding an employee, it's difficult to find peers, especially in the world of personal development. This is probably, I believe, why so many of us, as we age, we believe that I'd rather just be alone. This is why so many entrepreneurs, as they move up in the world, have a reputation for being a lone wolf, though I don't think it's actually true. I think they've actually cracked the code. I say all that to say this. The one behavior I believe that is breaking global progress is the near obstinate refusal to do personal development. Now, that might sound a little pointed and nuanced, but hear me out on this. And the areas of the TLE, the total life experience, fitness and health, healthy, happy relationships, work we enjoy, spirituality or self-awareness, connecting with God by connecting with others. If you actually look, the further you go in entrepreneurship, if someone is succeeding in their business, they're often failing in other areas of their life. I'm often looking for someone who's holistically well-rounded. While they're growing their business, they're growing their relationship. While they're growing their relationship, they're growing their fitness and health. They're in the best shape of their life, no matter what age they're in. They're in the best health of their life, not just shape, not just fitness, not just the ability to run a 10K in record time for their own life, but the ability to eat well and think right. In their work lives, the ability to grow their business. In their spirituality, the ability to sit and meditate or to reflect and have radical transparency with themselves and with their partners. The longer I live, the harder it is to find people that do that. And I believe that whether you call it greed could get dealt with someone who was surrounded by good relationships, someone who was working on their own mind, working on their own self-awareness, and working diligently at their business. Greed wouldn't be as big of an issue if everyone had the habit of personal development. Now, this is obviously what I believe is the one thing that could turn global progress around. In fact, if you look around and people are heavy with despair, heavy with the malaise of what I call the second pandemic, and that's the depression going around. If people just stepped up to the plate, there's an adage in fitness and health, the day you're not motivated to go to the gym and think, maybe I should take a rest day, that's most likely the day you should go to the gym. Not just the day you wake up pumped and think, I should get to the gym, I should go lift weights, I'm excited to do that. Yeah, you should probably do that. You should also see whether or not you need to take a rest day. But the day that you're feeling low, the day you're not feeling like going to the gym is especially the day you should go to the gym. Should you push your max? Nope. You should cultivate the habit of going, because that Overcoming is a thing that works on your own mind and helps you personally develop. It's the same in your personal development, in your emotional development, in your relational development, in your work development, in your spiritual development. If you don't feel like sitting to meditate, that's probably the time you should meditate. If you don't feel like praying, that's probably the day you should pray. If you don't feel like working on your business, that's probably the day you should step into your business. If you don't feel like working out that relationship or that important spousal relationship or that difficult conversation, that's probably the time you need to sit for coffee. You see, what we can learn from fitness, we can apply in other areas. But the truth is that as we get older, we start to accept a lot of things. And I present for your consideration today to resist. So, how are we going to solve this? Well, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. We know that, and we're almost sick of that quote. But I truly stand by being the change you want to see in the world. I encourage you to grow. I encourage you to study. I encourage you to pick up a book, even if you don't finish it, pick it up. It's like lifting a weight that you've never lifted before. Maybe you want to try 10 reps, but you can only get 5. You know that sitting at the gym, that's better progress than none. Why don't you know that about reading a good book? Or why don't you apply that same principle? I don't have the time to study. That's probably when you should just read one page. You can actually resist global human entropy simply by rebelling. I call it the reading rebellion. Simply by rebelling through reading, picking up a book, and making progress come hell or high water. So here's a few quick tips that I suggest that can help you return to being a person of personal growth. You see, someone like me who's always trying to grow, the more I grow, the more I realize the pack is left behind. I don't have a lot of peers I can rely on. I have to shed my whole friend group. Think about the cost of having to turn over all of your employees. However many employees you have, a lot of you have 5 employees or less. A lot of my clients and friends and people that follow this might work with another 30 people. Imagine firing everyone and having to hire everyone at the same time anew. This is what it's like to be a person of personal development and to realize that the friends you've been running with for the last 5, 10 years haven't grown. You're having the same conversation today that you had a year ago. Or they're coming to you so that you always inspire them, but they're very rarely bringing new data, new information, new inspiration, new resources, new breakthroughs, new relationships. Imagine having to turn over your entire staff. It's expensive. It's time consuming. Sales slow down. Profitability dips for that entire quarter, if not beyond. Now, maybe in the long run, if you have the staying power and the cash in the bank, it will pay off to do that. Now, imagine this in your personal life. Imagine the community you rely on, the people you do breakfast with on Saturday. Imagine the cost and expense of turning over the people you work out with, the intimate relationships that you can encourage and that encourage you proactively, the intimacy and spousal relationship where you reach out to them and they reciprocate in their own way, where you have peers in their businesses who are no longer squalling or no longer in squalor, doing the same old rut with their same old business, but have grown their business. They're not diminishing, they're growing or handing it off or into new ventures. And imagine spiritually leaving behind the people that are saying the same prayer they've said 1,000 times with no breakthrough, aren't praying for bigger things, better things, more breakthroughs, other people, additional things, meditating and pressing in and having self-awarenesses that they've never had before. Imagine having to turn over everyone in your life. This is what it's like when you're in business and you keep growing and others do not. It's very difficult. It's very lonely. And they say it's lonely at the top, but I don't think it has to be. I think that more of us could actually step up and grow. Listen, if you are a leader, continual personal growth helps you develop better empathy, be more effective with a wider range of people, delegate more effectively, more clearly, more concisely, in a more organized way, enable more results in your followers' lives or in your employees' lives or in your spouses or partners' lives more quickly. Because a lot of people who are just starting out on their personal development journey, a lot of those people need quick results. A lot of leaders have a great degree of delayed gratification. A lot of people just starting out need immediate results. When you go to the gym for the first time in years, if you don't see some sort of change quickly, you're going to get frustrated. But for those who have been going to the gym for years and your waistline or your biceps might not shift by a half an inch for 6 weeks or more, delayed gratification is often a trait of leaders. If you're a leader, continuing personal development, always having a book and the 4 areas of the TLE, can continually help you to grow and develop more empathy, be a more effective leader, delegate more effectively, more organized, more clearly, so better vision, and enable more results more quickly. Now, if you're a follower, you can also personally develop, not to quit being a follower. In fact, there's great roles out there for followers who are mature followers. In fact, I just heard it said by a very wealthy mentor I have. She said, she was talking about new hires, and she said, when you personally could probably get to a couple $100,000 in sales in your business venture alone. And then you hire someone, and quite often you hire a specialist. That's not what you should do first. You should hire another generalist, because that generalist can kind of share that load of selling a couple 100,000, get you up to $500,000 in sales. And as two generalists, there's going to be a little bit of conflict. But very quickly after that, you should have more bandwidth, and then you should be able to hire a specialist. In each of those scenarios, aside from being the founder of that business, those are very skilled followers. You can be a very skilled follower by continuing to personally develop and personally grow. And this helps you serve the vision better. This helps you encourage leaders who are out on their own edge. A lot of leaders are out on their edge. They feel lost many times. And they're still required to sow confidence in everyone who's following them or near them. They're supposed to show confidence and clarity. And though they can be honest and say, I'm not really sure, but I know we're going to make it. That's what leaders do. They need a lot of encouragement. They need to be pushed because they're creating breakthroughs that other people benefit from. If you're a follower, personally develop helps you grow, serve the vision better, encourage the leaders who are out living on their edge, and a lot of us are, and can continue to contribute to the work in a more and more and more effective way. So how do you grow? How do you grow, folks? I think a lot of us, as we get older, we forget because we're so inundated with the demands of life and the entropy, and we've accepted so much entropy, and this is kind of just the way it is. We forget how to grow. Well, we won't ride having a morning routine. Adam Welch will point you to the book, The 5 a.m. Morning, or the 5 a.m. Morning, or something like that by Robin Sharma. It's a good book with a good morning framework. You need a good morning framework. But I think it's simple. I think it's actively, clearly, specifically working on the TLE. What I mean by that is having a SMART goal, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound goal in the areas of fitness and health, healthy, happy relationships. And that's not just your spouse. That's not just your monogamous relationship. That's not just your non-monogamous relationships. It's having very clear, specific, measurable, attainable, time-bound goals in the area of relationships. It's also your employees. It's also your kids. It's also your nieces, your nephews, your aunts, your uncles, the important relationships in your life. You only have a limited bandwidth, so you need to pick them well. But hopefully your close family. What are the specific, measurable, attainable, time-bound goals you have for those relationships? I think quite often this one gets left undone because relationships are so hard to measure and quantify. We want them to be quality, not quantity. So we resist actually measuring them, but I think you can. In the area of work, whether you own your own business or businesses like we do, whether you own your own investments and you're an investor, or whether you're an employee, it doesn't matter. Having specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound goals so that you're getting nuggies along the way, you're getting inspired along the way, but you're also working towards a longer-term vision. It's critical. And in the area of spirituality, having SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, having clear, concise goals. Now, here's the thing. Actively, clearly, and specifically having goals in the TLE, here's the thing. You have to communicate those to others. It's lifeblood to leaders to hear that you have specific goals. It's lifeblood to people who are creating waves in the universe, because if we don't hear that you're setting goals, we don't believe you are. This is part of the human way. We are using AI to communicate with animals, and we're struggling to communicate to one another. That study I posted, they talked about how people prefer being alone. I believe people prefer being alone because the dopamine receptors happen more quickly than working through the challenges of communicating to other humans. Yes, it gets tiring, but what other role is there on this planet than communicating? How to grow. Have specific, clear goals in the areas of the TLE, the total life experience, fitness and health, healthy, happy relationships, work you enjoy, and spirituality. Have specific and communicate those to your people. Let them see your goals and decide if they want to be in your life anymore based on those goals. You owe it to the people around you because they might want to be free. Maybe they have other goals and your goals are creating too much dynamic tension in the relationships. And if you say, this is what I'm working on, hell or high water, get on this train or do not, they might go, hey, I love you. I'm going to work on these goals. They high five. Maybe we'll see each other in the future. Maybe we'll sit down together for coffee. And I hope to hear that you succeeded at your goals. Now that's heart-wrenching. That's difficult. But that frees you up as well to build new, stronger friendships, stronger relationships. You have to be clear on your goal, and especially with the partners who are helping you achieve that. So what behavior do you have that's breaking global progress? I would summarize it and say you're not doing personal development. But the second part of that is you're not communicating what you're working on to the stakeholders near you. And what habit can you do? Pick up a book, study, have clear, concise goals in the TLE, and then communicate those to the stakeholders in your life. And then high five one another if it's no longer a fit, hug one another if it is, and dig in and help each other achieve those goals. I know that sounds so simple, but I cannot emphasize it enough. And no matter what you do today, why am I hitting on this? Because we have a mission to heal this world and heal the people around us, to achieve our goals, to live a life of happiness. I call this the mission of igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. Have a great day.